Rolling.
We're rolling.
Hello, everybody.
We're rolling. Well, it's not. Can't do it yet. It's a live stream. You're supposed to wait for that stuff. You never know, right?
Right.
Yeah, something
Well,
like
they'll
that.
be here soon, and maybe they'll backspace, and they'll want a warm welcome right at the beginning.
Backspace, and they'll want a warm welcome. That's true.
Yes. So, hello, everybody. Warm welcomes from me and me alone.
Oh dear. Well, as we roll into our live, I'll go ahead and say welcome to another unauthorized caucus. I know that this notification is still going out, but I see some folks joining here that are watching us. So we'll begin to behave and get underway. You will please do us a favor this time. First of all, thank you for being here. Second of all, go to the website, go to phyllisschlafly.com and subscribe there for the email list so you can get all of the links and the resources we're going to talk about. I've got quite a few actually today that I'd like to send out afterwards. You won't get them if you're not on the email list, so you should go and get on the email list. That said, though, while you're here, hit the like and share and subscribe button wherever you are. Rumble, YouTube, if you're on Facebook or Twitter, share the link with a friend and let them know this conversation's going on, and they probably want to be a part of it. But particularly today, do us a favor. We've had a problem a couple of different weeks in a row with some audio on the stream. Not our recordings, but on the stream. So if you would be so kind as to let us know in the chat or email us, info@phyllisschlafly.com if you start to see it. I'd like to try to nail it down if it happens again. So there's a little bit of a behind the scenes, but you could help us because we use this feature a lot. I want to make sure that it is worthwhile for you to come and join us. So with that in mind, we had a good discussion last week. Talked a little bit about education. Went down a path of a few different things, kind of piling in on our, topic of family that we'd like to cover and talk about. But I think that there's a lot more to unearth, and we kind of hit across the bow of an idea to this week that I think we should stop and pause on. That's in this vein, and I think it's really important. I've been hearing it several different places across some of the places that I read and watch and listen on my own news gathering, or just longer topic, longer form things for enjoyment. And I think that talking about the war of words, or whatever you want to call it, is incredibly important. So, when I first brought this up to you, what are your top level thoughts on this? Like, just hit me with where does this fit in? Is this prevalent? I mean, obviously you agreed to talk about it, but I don't know. Give me your 30,000 foot view. The war of words in America.
Yeah, I mean, I think language is a tremendously important thing. And in doing research for this earlier, I stumbled across an interesting TED Talk, which led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole into cognitive science and the way that language interacts. And I forget the lady's name, but it'll be in the notes. It'll be in that email, so make sure you sign up because I'll send it to Ryan and you'll get to see it. But she was talking about the different languages shape different people's views in the world, and it was very interesting. Like on a trivia level of like, oh, these people have a much more spatial rather than like word understanding of the world. So that's how that impacts this. And it's like, oh, this word is feminine in that language, but masculine in that language. So that impacts the adjectives that they would use to describe like a bridge or something. And it points to the fact that the words that we use, like the entire structure of the language itself, is very important. But so are the individual words we use and the ways that we use them, because those actually change and affect the way we think about it. We think through language. Language is an integral part of human existence. And it's really, I mean, you would consider a human being that did not speak any language, that did not use language, to be a savage, just like a less than barbaric, because I mean, the barbarians, at least they spoke bar, as the Romans said. Language is how we think, it's how we communicate, how we work together and build something. So the proper use of language unencumbered by ideology, unencumbered by restrictive rules. I'm not talking about grammar; those are good rules. By these rules of conduct, it's critical to our existence. So what really came to mind first when you brought up this topic was I thought about phenomenology and Heidegger, which is kind of like high level, but I'll sum it up as language comes together as we as people interact, and the world emerges towards us, and we see these objects, and the way that these objects are significant towards us, then we attach symbols collectively over time to these objects because of the ways they are significant to us, and then so it kind of goes both ways. Like language emerges out of the world through the human experience and interaction with other people, but then it goes the other way too, where even as language emerges towards us, we put out language across the world.
Yeah.
So language is fundamental to our relation to each other, our relation to the things around us. Language is absolutely critical. Language is critical for knowing what came before us. I mean, there's these books around us. That's how we know what came before us. It's for planning what's going to come after, for doing anything. It's very difficult to overstate the importance of language. I don't think you can overstate the importance of language.
No, I agree.
And I think it's important that you should, Ryan, I think you should drill down on what that actually means today when there's a political dimension to language and the way that it's used.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of what led us into this. Like thank you for that super nerdy and, incredible deep dive. I appreciate it very much. But, I mean, you set the foundation there pretty well for how important it is as a function, obviously. But, and that's the thing. Let me preface this. I would tend to say, like, yeah, I mean, of course it's the foundation. That goes without saying. But I mean, the whole thing, pardon me, this whole conversation about words mean something. We need to understand that. We need to defend that. You and I have to actively participate in making sure that stays there. That should go without saying, right? And yet it doesn't. The day and age that we live in, what we're dealing with, the threats to our liberty, the threats to our very way of life here in America, to our republic, are largely based on things that should be obvious, you and I would think, but it's not. It's not to a lot of people, and they are letting folks get away with stuff. So to your point, it would seem obvious how important it is, but let's just state all the obvious things here to make sure we're all on the same page and we all understand just how deep the gravity goes. So with that in mind, I would say that one of my overarching point I'd like to make is really when as we've defined them, the neo-Marxists, when the modern radical left. I know we've got some audio bumps here and there, but I'm going to be watching the chat. It sounds like it's kind of in and out. We're going to nail it down, folks. Thanks for bearing with us. But as the left continues to manipulate language, continues to try to change the meaning of words, the real thing is that this seeps into, that's the word I want to use. It seeps into the consciousness of the nation. It seeps into the language that you and I use, even inadvertently. I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the words, but I know that I do this with you. I'll say something and stop and back up. No, I want to say that. I'm trying to reuse this or remake this in my mind, a specific word that I'm trying to use. It's important. It's worthwhile. Even to someone who knows what I mean most of the time, it is very worthwhile to be specific, to talk slower, to choose your words. I think that that's incredibly important. And it's because as this stuff seeps in and we just change our language, this is really a way where if you let someone get away with changing your language, changing the very foundation of how we talk about things, they can, in fact, and are controlling what you think. Mm-hmm. They're manipulating what you think because it matters. Your communication, this foundation of linguistics between people that you've described, they can really control how you think based on what they can make you say or not say, be afraid to say, fill in the blank. So that's where it falls down. I think that there's a lot of different categories that this comes into. Cancel culture, there's a phrase that we all hear, but understanding what that is, there's a very specific set of words you're not allowed to say anymore, or thoughts, or words together, something like that. It's all based on linguistics, though, our communication. Right. No, you can't say that. You might get in trouble. And if you get in trouble, you might lose your job. You might not be a candidate for a good job. You might get blackballed societally or socially, I should say. Or there are other things, very specifically that we see now, just the all-out assault on specific words and their actual dictionary definitions. I can't think of a better example than Matt Walsh and what is a woman. Literally, I want someone to answer what is the definition of a woman, and even just the most basic, not even all-encompassing, answer that they give at the end of their film. It is so hard to get people nailed down on this because the whole point is to make it ambiguous, is to make it disappear, to remove the foundation, the history, the solid, objective reality that exists apart from our opinions, apart from our feelings. It just is how it is. When you can remove that from people's communication, you can remove it from their minds, essentially, at least at a certain point or a certain number of generations in. Look what they can do. So the real political ramifications, I think, we are already starting to see more than you and I ever thought. And I remember, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when Rush Limbaugh and the standard Limbaugh listeners would rail against feminazis and this and that, like all these phrases that have kind of fallen away, and now we're talking about, you know, trans men are not men and trans women, and there's all these new words, and yeah, there's just as they take words away or twist the meaning of words. I would say the third and also most important thing is the addition of these words. This is where we get into the pronoun thing. And this is also where we get into, you know, it's not even just the words themselves, but we're changing. And I'm about to stop here because I've gone on for a little while. You did too, though. But I mean, this is where you get into, it's not just even the words that are being changed. It is the rules of grammar itself. I love the people who say, I don't care. You can try to identify as a different person, but you can't just switch over and demand that I refer to you in the third person. That's not how it works. I refer to you in the second person. Right. I refer to me in the first person. I refer to other people in the third person. You're asking for a third person switch. That's not how that works. Even if they really don't mind the trans thing and that's not their thing, it really does make no sense. That's the whole point. It is a confusion, and I'm about to go full Tower of Babel, so I'm going to stop now because we're about to get all Old Testament in here. But I mean, it really is a very purposeful confusion that is being infused. And I'd say that's the three things. Number one, what you aren't allowed to say. Number two, the words that they're making normal that are new. And number three, the breakdown itself of things that make sense, whether it's hybrid words or gender or orientation or, you know, fill in the blank terminology where I've never heard this word before. What in the world is that? Well, some gender studies major gets paid under tenure to come up with words, and he came up with that word. These are, I think, are the three legs of the word warfare stool in America that neo-Marxists are foisting upon us. And it's incredibly important for us to understand where it is, why it matters, the history of it, and that we must fight it. And it's not even, I don't even need to, you know, do we need to tell them what to say? Like, we know what to say. No, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
No, I'm not going to abide by that. That's dumb. Let's move on. It's, I don't know, like, do you agree? Do you agree with my three-legged stool theory? And then what do we do about it? Yeah. Like, what's the number one thing that you and I and that they can do to fight back against something like this? Practical.
Right. I mean, I think the three-legged, you know, kind of model of it is a very good way of looking at it. I think that sums up very nicely what the left is doing and how they've been doing it and the condition that we've gotten ourselves into. And I think that what people need to do is, you know, they need to be willing to call a duck a duck. You know, they need to be willing to call something what it is. Because I think something that's very important, especially on the second leg, was the confusion part. You know.
Or was it the third leg? Or did I confuse you? No, I'm sorry.
You did a great job.
Just kidding.
Certified leftist right here.
What can I say? No, I'm kidding.
No. The way we should call things what they are. We should be direct, and our words should be concise and descriptive and accurately descriptive of what is actually in front of us. And that is what the left wants to eliminate, because when we're being accurately descriptive of their plans, then it reveals plans for what they truly are. These insane machinations of destruction and you know, destroying Western civilization and the American heritage that we carry forth. When we call it what it is, you know, it becomes very clear. So that's why the left has gone to such great lengths to start, you know, changing terms and making things look a different way. You know, now we have undocumented migrant workers rather than illegal aliens that have illegally crossed the border of our country. You know, instead it's just, people that have come across looking for a better life, and it's like you have to call them people. Or I think the pro-choice, you know, pro-choice terminology is very interesting too, because it's like, well, who isn't pro-choice? But when you call it what it is, the dismemberment of a human baby that has not even had a chance at life yet, just the utter dismemberment of them in the womb before they can breathe air outside of the womb, you know, when you call it that, that seems pretty insane, and you don't really want to deal with that. Or I think one of the there's the recent example in Canada of a medical assisted aid in dying, where they just call it maid. You know, maid. It's a medical thing. It's everybody thinks of a maid, somebody that cleans and helps out and does good things and takes care of the kid. And you know, and in Canada now they're taking care of kids with maid, because now the parents don't need to consent if a child decides, I want to die, and the government is now going to pay for me to kill myself. Like that, when you call it what it is, it's absolutely insane. And I think the most recent instance of this kind of language shift, and it's already I don't know how people buy into this. I don't know how people catch on, but this whole like minor attracted person thing.
Yeah.
It's pedophile. If it's called pedophile, or if we want to go with the MAP, we could call them millstone attached persons. If you want to get kind of biblical with it, but yeah, it's when you call something what it is. The emperor has no clothes. The left does not have power because you can see their plans. You can see them for what they are: evil things, evil plans that are going to destroy society and hurt happy people and destroy families and destroy functioning civilization and only bring about disorder, especially with like the peaceful protests we saw in 2020, that literal disorder, destruction of property.
And that's the thing when you I think that and this is so pernicious to look at when you really start to pull it back and look at the issue from all the different sides, because I know that all of us as conservatives have an understanding of this. Like we would say that we have an understanding of this. And yet, I mean, the cultural shifts affect us all. I didn't used to use Google as a verb, and now I do. And I'm very much trying to stop myself. Hey, I went and searched for this. Hey, I searched or I looked that up instead of, I Googled that. Oh, you should Google that. That's new. That didn't, Google has established their dominance as a verb, not just a product. And that kind of, when you realize, and I mean, I'm sure you do it too. Think about it. That to me is the number one thing I can think of. There was no Google, not even when I was a kid. There was no Google when I was a preteen. And yet, well, I mean, Gmail and all the other things. Google existed, but not the way that it does now, not as the alphabet all-controlling agency. And that term is now just a part of most of our vocabularies. Now, you can probably, I'm sure someone will hop on. Not me. You can judge me if you want. I'm a millennial. We adopt these things. It just happens. But I realize when I look at that example, to your point, when they can just shift things, some of them are pretty shocking. Like, since when is it not okay to call someone a pedophile? Since when is that not okay? But there are other things which, this is the better way to say it. Well, this is the, pro-choice. No, it's not pro-choice. You're pro-abortion. You're pro-murder. That's my opinion, but it's accurate. It's true. But also abortion is the actual, no, you're trying to remove this. If we just sneakily add this one word in and remove this other one, it kind of lets people forget what it's all about. That kind of stuff is very sneaky. And it's in a lot of small, very specific places that they've put these things in. And it's very important, I think, for all of us to watch. Because again, to the point of what we've already said, this is really kind of the ticket to, for lack of a better and less conspiratorial term, mind control. You really can control the thinking of a populace if you can warp their language and the communications. And especially you can confuse the whole thing if you just take the commonality out of it. Well, things don't mean what they used to mean, and it's this and that and the other. We've changed all of these things around. It's incredibly important. And this is where I'd like to make a distinction between some of the folks that we're following as conservatives. And actually, I'm not going to lie, I'm very purposefully using this from someone else I've heard, and I've heard it from a few different people, so it's not original to me. But I think it's incredibly important for us now to follow leaders and thinkers and communicators who are being very purposeful with their language. And I've seen this, the big debate has popped up. There's a lot going around, and I'm not going to inject this whole thing in there now, but people talking about the different communicators on masculinity in America, but in the world, what it means, where we need to go, what's wrong, et cetera, and so on. And there's a lot of comparisons from Matt Walsh to Andrew Tate to Jordan Peterson to fill in the blank. There's a lot of people in this realm, and I'm not making a statement of agreeing with them or not. But if you look at them, there are some of them, especially, notably Jordan Peterson, some of the others, when you listen to them, they are extremely precise with their language. They're extremely careful to make sure we've established the boundaries of this conversation in language. And then I'm going to choose my words carefully. I'm not going to sacrifice time to filler words or making my way around to the point. I'm just going to go straight there the first time. I think that is a very important thing for all of us to strive to now more than ever, to very clearly set what words mean and what they don't. And then as we're having conversations with people, whether we agree with them kind of, or it's just someone who's completely on the other side of an issue, make sure that you're using every opportunity to be very specific and very careful with what you say, how you say it, so that we can direct the conversation in the right way. And also so that it's fruitful and it actually makes sense at the end of the day. And you're not using all these different words and everyone's, using what they think of. Define it. Move forward that way. Be very specific. Don't waste words. Don't waste time. And I think that if we really take a hard look at that, we'll realize all of us fall, prey to this, because again, it's all around us. This is a cultural shift that is affecting all of us. And the war on words themselves, the war on language, is just mind-boggling to look at. It's real 1984 stuff. It is. I mean, there's one of your clarion calls for today. If you haven't, go read 1984. Not that that's the playbook that they're following, these neo-Marxists, but it really does give you an idea of what to be.
It's about language
cautious
control.
for. I mean, it is. It's
Yeah,
the whole thing is
that's
about
the
language
subject,
control, but
so.
it gives you the opportunity to look at it and say, what do I need to do differently? What do I need to be on guard for? And then we've got a lot of good ones as well here, but this is just the power of words, of human communication. I mean, this is something specifically, this is something specifically that was addressed, from a biblical, from a historical standpoint. The people banding together, the Lord split their languages and sent them out because it was, this is an important thing. So it's a very big and important topic that I feel like we kind of come in and out of, but we're so focused on some of these other fights that it's important to back up and remember it's all tied back to this. And this is one of the ways that they normalize, that the left will move certain topics in or out of the conversation. And then really they can ultimately change not just future generations, what they think, but even us now, if we're being honest and looking at it. I think it's an incredibly important part of this whole conversation. So what do you got? I know we're going on here toward the backside of our 30 minutes we like to take. I want to catch up on a couple of the things, because I see at least on Rumble today. Rumble is active on the chat.
Hear what people have to say.
So let me just hear what I don't need you to. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. By the way, someone said that your audio is unclear. Mine is fine.
Why does this always are you taking the good mic every week?
It's not that we could. Do you want to switch mics right now?
See if that changes.
Yeah, let's switch mics right now. Not all of us are blessed with projection.
At first I was afraid I didn't turn it on, but it looks like it's on.
I turned it on. I should leave it off.
Anyway.
That'd be fun. We'll try this and see if it matters. But we'll see. Yeah, Michael Savage years ago. That's right. One of the titles of the old Michael Savage books. I forget what it was, the actual title, but it had to do with borders, language, culture. Very, very interesting. I remember that. That's a good one to go look at. Someone says that's right. More accurate in the descriptions. Too confusing. Democrats aiming to legal pedophilia. That's right. Which things we've talked about here. Someone says over on our Rumble chat that her sister gets very upset when she tells her to look it up or put it in your search engine, because it's so convenient to Google. But I agree, it is sloppy and it gives one bad company a lot too much credit. Good point there. Let me double check over here. We got all the different ones going, but yeah, there are a lot of leaders on this very specific issue, and I think we're starting to notice more conservative leaders address this purposefully, much more, and stop in the middle of a conversation, whether it's about biology, gender, sexuality, or whether it's about children, or whether it's about education, or whether it's about civil governance. People are stopping, I'm noticing, and saying, now hold on. This is the set of words we're using. These don't apply. These do. Let's stop confusing it. And I'm noticing that more and more. I really feel like there is a shift of understanding that is starting to happen toward this issue. And I think it's something that all of us need to start paying attention to more. Where are our opportunities to lead on this,
right? To
be thoughtful and to lead others into a much more specific thing. And again, this is, I feel like this conversation kind of probably came back into vogue thanks to the wild popularity of What is a Woman, where we were very specifically focusing on, but define the term for me. And it became obvious that this one section doesn't want to define that term or a lot of others.
It's just feelings. It's
Yeah.
it's all relative. I mean, it's moral relativism.
Right.
And then this other side, no, but there is an answer. So what is the answer? And then there's the other side is offended the fact that you even insinuate there's a single answer and blah, blah, blah. Well, that right there shows you the worldview divide beneath the whole thing. There is absolute truth that exists outside of ourselves, or there isn't. And there is. It's just, go fight gravity and tell me how it goes.
Right,
Go fight.
right.
There are absolute truths that we cannot change, no matter how much you want. You might be able to artificially manipulate them for a while.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is why Jordan Peterson has been so refreshing for the last few years, especially what was it, like 6 years ago, where he first came on the scene. It was over a language issue in the first place, when he was like, I am not going to deal with this legally enforced pronoun nonsense, because that is legally enforced language control. That's not good. This can lead to bad places. And he saw that right away because he knows history. But his I think it's interesting to talk about, the way he speaks and watches what he says, because in his first book, Maps of Meaning, the one that doesn't get as much reading, he talks about his experience dealing with how he had this inner voice whenever he talked that would talk about, you don't actually believe what you're saying. You're just parroting other people all the time. And that really bothered him. And he was like, I don't want to be like this anymore. So he just stopped talking unless he was really certain of what he's saying, and just really practiced that for a while, and decided to really work hard on reading and making sure that he really knew his stuff and was saying stuff that he meant rather than just whatever popped into his head. And I think that's one of the reasons he lit fire so fast back in 2017, 2018, when he first got on the scene, because he was not a pre-made media star. He wasn't just ready to get on nighttime news and be able to have those quippy comebacks a second after somebody finishes. You look at those early Joe Rogan interviews, and there's silence in those. He sits there and he thinks after he gets asked a question, or in his talks, he sits there and he thinks through what he's going to say, and then he's precise with his language. So the media environment that we're in, with TV and social media and hyperspeed TikTok and Twitter with those short form little thoughts, it's created an environment that's fertile for somebody to come in and start inserting ambiguity and difficulty. But that's why we need to be able to, like I said earlier, call a thing what it is. And second, actually be able to slow down and stop and think and say what we actually mean. Because and that's incredibly important in one-on-one conversations. Be willing to actually sit there and be with another person. Speaking of phenomenology, be there, like physically allow yourself to just be where you are with another person and communicate, because our minds are so they're not actually, but I think it's a useful heuristic, like ADHD'd out from all the social media, that we have to be willing to go slow and listen and speak. And because even something like this, when we're on camera and we have a certain amount of time, we kind of have to be going nonstop and, get our thoughts out as quickly as we can and make them as snappy as possible. But this is a live stream. This is not the real world. This is us just trying to generate a conversation that you need to go out and actually talk to with other people, with people in your life. You need to think about what we're saying, and you need to do your own research and talk about these issues with other people in your life, because that is when language works best, when it's done genuinely and slowly and thoughtfully with other people in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you put the punch on it. Let me put my there's your wrap up punch. And then let me give you a short punch card of ideas, things to do. First of all, go and look these things up and take some thoughtful research. He's got a point. Jordan Peterson came on the scene because of language, because of the gender identity rights thing in Canada that came up. They literally added pronoun usage to their Human Rights Act and then to the hate speech criminal codes and all sorts of things. And Peterson said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say what you want me to say. I don't care. Throw me in jail. Fine me. I'm not going to pay your fine, but you can put me in jail. I'm not going to say what you want me to say just because you say so. That's not how this works. That's the kind of, I think, boldness that we need. But on the way, it's important. We could have a whole other thing, but the hemispheres of your brain versus digital, or the hemispheres of your brain when it comes to digital versus in person, that's a whole science that you should look into if you like. It matters. So here's my practical tips. Stop reading short little articles online. Go read a book. Stop reading things on a screen. Read from a page. Stop typing back and forth or texting with friends and family on social media and texts. Sit down and talk to them in person. You got family who's really far away. someone who's wrong about something and needs to be corrected. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I have family like we all know how that is. Write them a letter, or at least get an email going or a direct message, and don't go back and forth. Take the opportunity to engage in a longer form conversation. It makes you stop. It makes you think. You look at something, you read it, you rewrite it. It's incredibly important. So there's a few things that I would advise you do. These are things I'm trying to change in my own life as well. I think it's important because it shifts our thoughtfulness and our direction the right way. And it also gives us more of a chance when someone comes up with these nutty things that they do want us to say or they want us to stop saying, and you get to consider it and say, no, that's not right. And I'm not going to do it. I think that's incredibly important. That's where we are. By the way, our Rumble folks say that since switching the microphones, you're coming through loud and clear. So it may be the microphones or it may just be your projection. I think they're right. It's either one of those still. I appreciated that comment. Thank you. But there you go. That's a whole big topic to jam into 30 minutes.
Yep.
And we're going to have a lot of different links, a lot of things that I think are important on this. Man, it's going to be a full email. So you need to go and subscribe. Go subscribe now at phyllisschlafly.com. We'll send you emails. Most notably, there will be one tonight about this talk and the resources behind it. And we will look forward to another one next Thursday. We're marching forward. Before we close down, let me remind you, you want to come and have these in-person discussions, go to eaglecouncil.com. I saw someone ask earlier, we've got Tiffany Justice from Moms for Liberty has agreed, but we also have a lot of other folks that currently have invitations out and are starting to come back. I'm actually not going to say it here right now, but we're going to be putting out an email with several different names here tomorrow. Provided everyone, says go for it, we're locked in. So we're going to start rolling out a lot more, and there's going to be a lot more conversations there. It's shaping up to be really neat as people are putting this down on their calendars. I'm very excited. We've started getting a lot of calls. We've gotten a lot of registrations this week. It's starting to build very quickly. It always does in the last month. So I don't want you to miss it if possible. Shoot me an email, ryan@phyllisschlafly.com if you'd like to come but can't. We'll try to figure something out. Otherwise, head over to eaglecouncil.com, register today, and also keep an eye right there because that banner is about to populate with a bunch of different speakers tomorrow when that goes up live. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for having the conversation with me in person, for switching microphones and projecting a little more. We're still unsure. The jury's out which one it is.
I think it's the microphones. I think they sound great.
Well, I'm sitting here. No, I'm kidding. We'll stop. But thank you for being here. We will look forward to having another very unauthorized, very caucus discussion next Thursday at noon. And we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody.